Well, hello, Metro District family. Great to be with you again for this next episode of the Collective Leadership Podcast. As you know, this podcast is all about collaborating for kingdom renewal and holistic gospel transformation. Today, I am joined by the illustrious. Can I say that? Is that totally fine? Is that how they know you around here? Okay, that's what I thought.
Works.
Reverend Brian McMillan, he, of course, is the lead pastor here at CenterPoint, which, by the way, we're coming to you, not live, but we're coming to you from Long Island, Massapequa, New York today. So we're really excited to be on the island. And Brian is, yes, the lead pastor here at CenterPoint Church, and he is also the director of church planting for our Metro District. So great to have you, brother.
Yeah, appreciate it. Glad to be able to be here with everyone.
Yeah, we're going to have a great podcast today. The episode today is really all about church planting. So we're talking about expanding the gospel footprint. We're going to be talking about just the state of church planting, not just in the district, but maybe some trends that are happening, in the U.S. But if you are not a planter, please don't just say, I'll wait for the next episode. Because here's the reality. You may be listening to this and say, well, I've never been a planter. I took on a church, that has already existed, long before, I came into leadership. The reality is, and I'm a firm believer of this, if there's 75 to 100 people in your church, I'm pretty a firm believer that there's likely one missionary among you and there's a planter among you. God has given vision to somebody in your church to do something new. So you may have the opportunity coming out of this podcast episode to support a planter. We're also going to be talking about ways in which our Metro churches can support existing planters. We have a lot of them, and we praise God for that. And God may decide to birth something new in you after you listen to this episode. So definitely, hold on to your seats, and it's going to be a good one. But it's hard for me to believe that anyone does not know you. But before we jump into the episode, we do want to hear hey, who are you? Give us some of your background. Give us a little history on CenterPoint and where God has brought you.
Yeah, because the story of CenterPoint is also the story of church planting. So I had the privilege of being able to found this church in 2002. So we're 24 and a half years into this journey. So well past planting, but it was a result of planting. And the church started because, especially at the time, I was still single. I wasn't married yet. I was, again, in my early 20s. I was a young adult pastor at a local church on the island. And I just felt a real burden to reach Long Island. I had a great church, wonderful Baptist church, but I would invite my friends and they would feel like there was a huge disconnect from the church to their lives. And I found it hard to have my friends return. And so it was in that tension that I just felt like, all right, instead of complaining, maybe I can do something about it. Yeah. And so I started a process of meeting with my pastor, my lead pastor at the time, then a guy in our church who became a mentor, Dave Miles, who helped out with church planting. And both of them said, we really feel like God has called you to be a planter and to start something new. They didn't fight it. They were just very free with saying, hey, we want to be with you, release you, and send you. Yeah. And so that church, and there was some cultural things they had to work through. They had never planted before. It was the first time. So it was scary for them. They were scared about losing people. They were scared about money. They were scared about young people going with me, and the church is getting older. But after wrestling with that, the board finally said, okay, no, we're going to bless you and send you. And that's when we planted CenterPoint Church, January of 2002. Wow. And I only had 25 people. Okay. Not one of them was married. Not one of them probably made over $35,000. Okay. I was still at NIAC at the time, no formal education yet. I mean, it was just, it was a complete step of faith. And truthfully, if I came to me now and said, hey, I want to plant with where I was, I'd say no. I mean, it seemed just so foolish, but in a beautiful way that God blessed it. And we we only had faith. We really had nothing else. We didn't have experience, resources, money, time, talent, wisdom. I mean, all we had was prayer and faith and a hunger to reach the lost. So we launched our church. We started in Knights of Columbus. We outgrew that. A year later, we moved to an American Legion. So it was about 4 or 5 years of portable church. So anyone out there doing portable church, come on. You got to do what you got to do. And then that's when we ended up renting a church in the Metro District that Bruce Terpstra helped us connect with in Belmore, New York. And that's actually when my relationship with the Alliance took off. So I grew up in a C&MA church in Erie, Pennsylvania, First Alliance Church under Rick Crocker, and I went to NIAC. So I had those things already there, but it was really the relationship with Bruce and him inviting me to my first district conference. And just that time where I started to become part of the Alliance family and fell in love with what God was doing in the Metro District, and then, became ordained and part of the Alliance. And now I can't imagine myself anywhere but being part of the Alliance.
Yeah. And so same here. I mean, the reality is for us, for those of you listening, the reality is you may know CenterPoint's story and big church, but obviously you're talking about your beginnings, right? I have never, anytime I've ever called you to say, would you talk to a pastor? The answer is always yes. But what I love is the response you actually always give, which is, I will talk to any pastor about anything that they want to know. Like, you're an open book, and the reality is you really do care about our district. You care about the local church. You care about the kingdom of God. It doesn't even matter what tribe people have been associated with. You're going to be there to support, which totally love that and respect that. I just want to make that, known to our listeners. So,
and I've appreciated our district allowing me to also invest in different denominations and spheres and circles, and really anyone. There's church planters that aren't part of our church planting network that we support and have helped and sent people to help launch their churches as well. So Long Island needs more churches. So I want them to be Alliance, but I want more churches more than anything else. So the church just kept moving. It took us a long time, especially with just a young adult sphere, to break certain barriers. It took us year 5 till we had our first Sunday over 200. CenterPoint was not an overnight success. It was a very slow and steady progression. One of the beautiful things about being in a church for decades is you get to bring it through different seasons, which I've really loved. And then we felt called to multi-campus, and things just kept evolving the way that God's called us to. So we plant churches and we start campuses and we do whatever it can to reach Brooklyn to Montauk and get the gospel out there as much as we can.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome, brother. Obviously, huge history story there. Beginnings, obviously, you planted CenterPoint. Now you're also the director of church planting. I know that you've been on the church planting team for the district since 2019 when Kelvin started.
Yep.
But now you're the director of church planting. And so I guess give people a little bit of a window of what it looks like, what you're doing, how many plants do we have?
Yeah, I've loved this role. I'm honored to be able to do it, to help churches in the most vulnerable of moments, which is being birthed, and being there as a friend and as a coach and as a fellow pastor. It brings me a lot of joy, and it's a lot of work. And so fortunately our district staff has been so extraordinarily helpful. Whether it's Brian with finances and legal, or Becky does so much, and all of our team, Jen, and you name it, everyone steps in to help. And so what it's been huge for me is it's not just me as the director, it's been our district staff working alongside our planters, helping in multiple ways. So that's been really, really cool. But yeah, I would say that I think we have one of the healthiest church planting cultures and mechanisms in the tri-state area. And I don't say that lightly. I work with other church planting directors and other ministries. I feel like I know what's happening out there. But between what we provide in community, what we provide in resources, what we provide in money, and what we provide, hopefully, as the collective district, just sets us apart from most of the other ministries or organizations that are church planting. So I just think there's a larger holistic thing that we do that isn't as normative. And we see a lot of success. We have a lot of our church plants that are just thriving and very, very quickly hitting numeric numbers through people coming to faith, where it allows them to be able to look towards accreditation at a relatively quick speed. So there's a lot of momentum. I'd say right now we have about 15 church plants at different seasons, because we have 4 different stages of church plants. Okay. So we have about 15 that are at one of those 4 stages on their way to being an accredited church. And it's, again, it's just a great community.
Yeah. As you work with planters, what do you feel like is one of the biggest obstacles that they would face?
Mm-hmm. The financial is always number one. And a lot of our guys are bivocational or co-vocational, and so there's a little different aspect when someone's going down that road. Okay. But if someone is going right into it, they're already a full-time pastor. It's hard to go from being a full-time pastor into bi or co-vocational. Mm-hmm. So full-time pastors that are going into church planting tend to need to stay as full-time pastors, which means there needs to be enough income to sustain them in that season before there's a church that is bringing in enough income that's now supporting them by themselves. Mm-hmm. So the money portion is the first hurdle that we have to figure out, get past, make sure it's viable for that person. The second then is the launch team, having enough people to have a core group so that when you do launch, you have enough people to do the work and have a service and have some people greeting and kids and worship and sound and just all the different aspects. So if someone is starting from scratch with no one, it takes forever to get to 25. It takes that much longer to get to 50. If we can launch someone, and they've already been in the area doing some ministry, but if we can launch someone with 35, 50 people, their likelihood of getting to a point of self-sufficiency and health it just skyrockets. Mm-hmm. So trying to help them build that team, giving them tools for being exceptionally missional and evangelistic in their community, that's the second one. And the third's always buildings, space. Yeah. Where are you going to meet? Right. It's pretty cheap in Manhattan, for example, to find space. Yeah, that's what I thought. So we don't have to worry about the city. Mm-hmm. But in the suburbs of New Jersey or the more rural areas, that's where it gets expensive.
It's really it's the taxes, the congestion. No, I get all that.
But that's the third thing I would say is the facilities.
Okay. All right. Let's go back a little bit, because you obviously said when you started there, all you had was prayer, faith, wanting to reach the lost. How did you actually mobilize? Was it? Let me ask it this way: was it easy to mobilize your people to actually engage the unchurched? Was it difficult? What did people need? What were you able to provide?
So we're going back to CenterPoint. 25 years ago. Yep. It was relatively easy because of two things. The first is everyone was young and single. Okay. It's just different when you're young and single. Like, we have nothing else to do. This is who we were. And then the second was the vision we cast for the church right off the bat was, if you didn't want to be a missionary, this probably isn't the church for you. So everyone who became part of this launch team was told, you are a missionary and we're going to equip you. So no one would stick around if they didn't want to do that. If they wanted a church where they're just going to get a lot of different services and programs and whatever, CenterPoint would not have been the church for them. So mobilizing was easy, but the fruit of that still took forever to come to fruition. Because just because you have a heart for something doesn't mean it's going to happen. Of course, yeah. So learning how to share our faith and how to bring people to Christ, and that took a couple of years to find our voice and how we do it as a church. That was a slow process. That did not happen overnight. And if I wasn't so young and single and living at home, I don't know if I financially could have church planned at that season. But, I was living at home with mom and dad, so made it a lot easier. I don't recommend that either, by the way. That's not one of my strategies for church planning. Yeah.
So do you find that the things that you learned you were doing 25 years ago have those things been able to transfer with our planters today, or just not even our planters, but the planters that you're working with?
Yeah. So here's my own take.
Okay.
All right. As much as we talk about each generation, their uniqueness, Gen X to millennials and everything in between, they all have the same cycle. I think sometimes we make culture more complex than it is. Everyone has the felt needs of community. Everyone has the felt needs of being listened to. Everyone has the, something within them that tells them that there's a brokenness within them. So to answer your question is yes. I don't think things really are that different. All right, we have AI now. There's more technology. You have bigger TVs than we did 25 years ago, right? Everyone has a cell phone. We still had a pager back then. Whatever the case may be, like it's actually not that difficult, because at the end of the day, it's loving people, having relationships with them. They know you're not selling them something, but you care about them. And when that happens, people become part of the community. It's still, most people need to belong before they believe. And if they feel welcomed into a community and a third space for them where they haven't had one and people are giving them time, it leads to the spiritual fruit of salvation. And so I don't think it's any different. I really don't.
That's great.
We just have LED walls now.
Right.
Instead of the overhead projector.
Yeah.
What was the thing where you put the
transparency.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had that a few times in those early meetings.
Where the chords were actually on also the
Yes.
words. Yep.
How else would the band know?
How would they know? Turn around, guys. Come.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome. So one of the things that when we met recently that I loved that you said and felt like it was a vision casting moment for me, is you want to see Metro move. Here's how I understood it. Moving from a district that plants churches, or at least in people's perception, Metro is a district that plants churches, to becoming a church planting district. That's how I heard it.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Let's start with what's the difference between the two, and then obviously, what does that actually look like to get there?
Right. So in churches, in denominations, we often set goals and we work towards those goals. And it's a very laborious, intentional process. What we've been doing as a district is we say church planting is important to us. We need more churches. We should plant churches. It comes from the district, not always, there's a few exceptions, but generally it comes from the district, telling the district, our churches and our pastors, this is what we need to do, here's one that we're doing. To switch from that to becoming a church planting district is what it's part of the DNA of the district, where enough churches are actively involved and assume that it's going to happen, that it's not something we're just saying we should do, but across the board, the majority of our churches have some concept of it and way of partnering with the district in it and desiring it, and it's something very organic and natural to us, right? When it goes to the DNA of who we are, that's when it becomes part of who we are. And that's my dream for us. I mean, I'd love to see us double, triple in the amount of churches we have in 15, 20 years, because we're always looking at ways to plant churches. It's just so organic to our district. And so that's kind of how I see that. Where every church to some extent, whether it's financial, whether it's sending a person, a planter, whether it's sending people, whether it's however that may look, we're doing it together and we're looking forward to it.
So hypothetically, I'm a pastor, I have a church, I'm listening to this podcast, right? There's an itch maybe, I'm like, man, yeah, I want to be a part of this. As a pastor, what do I need to look at? Because I think sometimes what can happen is, man, that sounds really cool for the CenterPoint. Like you guys now have resources, you have people. If you send 200, like, if I send 200, that's my whole congregation, or it could very well be that's double my like who knows, right? As a lead pastor, what am I looking for? What am I looking at? How do I know I'm actually primed to start to own this DNA,
Right.
you know, and look at doing something in the next few years, 3 years, 5 years? What am I looking at?
So first, let me say, CenterPoint helped launch our first church, Beacon Church, when we were at year 3 and under 200 people. Right? So, and we've helped now launch 7, 8 churches on the island. But the first one, we were only 3 years old and under 200 people. So I just want to say, never let the size of the church dictate if you can be involved in church planting. We didn't send a lot of people. We certainly didn't send a lot of money, but that's still a great relationship we have with that church today because, you know, we were involved in the beginning. But it does seem overwhelming because a lot of times when people think of church planting, they think of the mother-daughter model. And the mother-daughter model is we're the sending church. We're going to, you know, send X amount of our people and we're going to financially cover it, and we're sending the church planter, and it almost feels like the church is going to now split. And that doesn't need to be the case. You know, I've probably shared this before at something district, but my philosophy of church planting is it's like giving blood. When you give blood, you give enough to save someone else's life, but you don't hurt yourself in the process. So I don't think church planting has to be, I have to cut off an arm, and now for the rest of our ministry life, we're armless, or we're missing something, or we've hurt ourselves in that period. There may be times that God calls you something extreme, but I don't think that's normative. I think the normal process is how can I play a part in something that's bigger? And here's a great part about being connected to a denomination in a district is it doesn't have to fall on one church to do all the heavy lifting. So if I'm a pastor, I'm hearing this, and I have a heart for church planting. I mean, first I'd reach out to me, give me a call, love to chat. And maybe there's going to be a church that we help start nearby you, and you can help with a level of the people that are part of the launch team. Maybe one of the other moments is it is a financial commitment, and you're saying, all right, we're going to come alongside, and we don't have a lot, but we could probably give 20,000 or have a special event to give 20,000 or 15,000 for a church for the next year. And so I think there's a lot of different things that can happen outside of saying we're solely responsible, because that's not what we're looking for in our district for the most part. It's how can I play a part in all those needs we just discussed, where we can help serve a church plant and be part of something that's larger.
Yeah, definitely. So it doesn't have to be driven just by me. I've got a vision. Now I'm going to go do this thing. There are other opportunities. So with that, what does this start to look like on a practical level? One of the things that you rolled out at the last district conference is we're looking for church partnerships, particularly for our district church planters. What does that look like? What does it mean for me to be a partner? How do I do this in a practical way?
Yeah, and I'm so excited that we're here. This has been years of conversation and years of prayer and getting us to the place where I think this is the most organic and most useful benefits of being in a denomination. Because a partner church for us would be one of those things that we just mentioned. Maybe they're financially, they're helping out, right? I'd love for a couple, so say we're planting a church. It's in Central Jersey, and we have 4 or 5 churches, could be any sizes, that say we're now going to partner with this church plant because the district will run out of district money at some point. That's not, the church planting budget comes out of a bank account that is there until it keeps decreasing. So we have these other churches say we're going to partner, and we're going to be praying for you, and we're going to be financially helping to cover. And maybe there's a few other churches or some of those as well say, no, we 15 people left. Yeah, we would miss them, but that wouldn't cripple our church. And so now we're partnering with other district churches to let a church planter lead them and start a new work in this new area. And then the church planter gets to be part of the church in the pre-launch season, maybe come and preach, meet the congregation, share, and there gets to be a beautiful relationship where it does feel like a partnership, because it's not just sending something and there's no relationship back, but it's an ongoing thing that the church gets to celebrate. We got to help birth a new church in our district. So So the partnership part for me, I would love to see all of our churches, because maybe it's for a 3-year season and then you don't do it again for 7, 8 years. But at some point in the near future, as we get new church planters and they're ready to come on board, that we can pair them up with 4 or 5 other churches that will really come alongside them and treat them as spiritual sons and daughters and love them and help that church get off the ground.
Yeah. And actually, one of my questions was, generally, how long do you foresee a partnership lasting?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that hurts some of the Alliance missions conversations around partnership is that you kind of enter it and there's no like off ramp ever. Like this is going to be forever. And when it's not, if leadership changes, there's a lot of hurt people. So I tell people all the time, like you should have like natural off ramps.
Yep.
What would be a natural off ramp?
So for us, it's when they, I said the term already numerous times, when they become accredited. The lowest number is for me about 3 years.
Okay.
But a lot of our church plants are becoming accredited by year 3. Okay. Churches in the city, other scenarios where a church may be trying to reach more of a specific ethnic population and the finances aren't as available wherever they are, or something more inner city. There's going to be different scenarios where you're going to need more. Less affluence, it's part of the reality of what the financial income is will impact it. So some of them may need 4 or 5 years, but I wouldn't go into it with saying, "Hey, will you for that long?" I would ask our churches to be a partner church for 3 years, and then see how it goes. But if I could get a 3-year commitment, that'd be incredible.
Yeah. Are there any areas that you're looking at in particular to say, man, like this area here, we've got some churches. Like, what would be some of that?
Our northern counties have we don't have a lot of churches as you go further north in our district. The city needs a lot more churches. We need a lot more churches in our boroughs. And I'm still a believer. So if a church planter comes to me and has a heart for a place, that's where you should let them plant. Maybe you'll say, "Hey, will you pray about this area?" And that's fair. But if they have a burden for something that God has put in them, then we want to follow that and respect that. But if we look at a map, there's certainly some areas where we say, okay, where's their overall churches? I'm just Alliance churches. Where are there areas where we see, and I have one here for Long Island in the office, where you can look and say, there's no life-giving churches in that area. So we want to be strategic, starting a campus or a church in areas where we know that there's not a strong evangelical gospel presence in that community. And so we do want to be intentional when those opportunities present themselves.
What kind of foundational groundwork can a pastor begin to do today that would start to set them up potentially to raise up some planters in their midst, even if they've never planted before themselves? Like, what does that look like? Because you're doing some of that, like you've got an exciting event happening on Sunday night you were telling me about earlier.
Yeah. It's a hard application question because a lot of great church planters are not currently pastors, right? So to say this, I don't know how many of us would figure out the proper way to present something like this without having a lot of steps already thought through. But a lot of great church planters are successful business people, people that have done well in different career paths where they've had to create and innovate and lead people. And I do think in our churches, we have a lot of potential people that would go into vocational ministry or co-vocational ministry, but they've never been given the opportunity to process it, to pray about it, to think about it. The event, Omar, that you mentioned, we just trying something new at CenterPoint where I put out a post on Facebook. It was just an idea. I made a graphic on ChatGPT, right? With all that's how we still roll sometimes. And I just put an idea out there. Is God calling you to be a pastor? And just wanted to do a really casual event where we open it up for a dinner to say, hey, this is what ministry looks like. This is what pastoring is. These are what roles are. Church planting, associate pastor, youth pastor, you name it, missionary. And we just kind of floated the idea And we have 135 people signed up for this event right now.
Amazing.
And I was expecting 20. I was expecting to do it at the local restaurant in their little back area. I didn't think the response was going to be the way that it is. And it did show me that people have thought about it before, but they've never had a moment where someone has said, do you feel a calling to be a pastor? And then have that opportunity to have a conversation, hear some things laid out, think about the logistics from the pay to, seminary and schooling and education. How do you get that theological knowledge? Yeah. No one's shared that in the church anymore. Like we're kind of silent on that. Yeah. So what we want to do now here, as I look at Long Island and want to find more church planters and more people to help take some of the other churches over that the pastors are about to retire, there's going to be a huge gap of ministry workers as this next generation retires. Seminaries are not full. So we need to figure out a way to present to our people who here has God given gifts and talents to and a calling on your heart to be in ministry, not to use those for your vocation in the secular world, but to use those gifts in the church and let this be what you do with your time. So I'm really excited about it. I'll let the district know if it flops or if it goes well, but there is something about we as pastors have to present ideas of people stepping out of their current vocation and livelihood and whatever it may be, and realize, no, God may want to use you with the gifts he's given you specifically for the purpose of shepherding the people of God.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I mean, really, you're talking about giving people opportunities, right? Like, just here's an opportunity. Let's have a conversation. Let's see where it goes. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. How would you like to challenge our pastors? Is there anything like that we haven't, like a question I haven't asked, something we haven't addressed that you're like, man, if nothing else, pray on this, walk away with this?
Yeah, we're so busy. I mean, I don't know a pastor who's like, man, I'm just so bored. I got so much free time. I'm playing video games right now. We're doing so much and our mind's always racing, and we're trying to minister to all of our people and prepare our next sermon and keep our church afloat and trying to reach the lost. And in the busyness of church maintenance, we often don't get past that to dreaming anymore and strategizing for beyond ourselves or thinking about something beyond ourselves. That's just the default nature of humanity. Church planting and caring about missions globally, to get there, you have to stop for a second and say, all right, what, outside of the busyness of the now, what is God putting in my heart or challenging me to care about something that's kingdom and not just self-serving, and not in a bad way self-serving. We have to, but yeah, that bigger picture. The one thing I'd love to throw out to our pastors is to just say, because I believe all of our churches, I really do. I just wanted to make sure I was saying that accurately. Sometimes we say things and they're not real. I think all of our churches, to some extent, could become a partner church to help new planters as God brings them our way, whether internal or external, to help reach more areas. And I think if we look at a map of our counties and our communities, we will see spaces where we know there needs to be a gospel presence, and just start praying for those areas, praying that God raises people up, and how can we serve? How can we get involved? How can we make a difference?
Yeah. And I love what you're talking about, because even in what you said before with Beacon Church, right? Like we didn't send the whole ton of people, obviously. We didn't send the whole ton of money, but you get to look back and say, even if it was smaller, right, in a numerical value, we got to be a part of that. Like we are part of the story to see another successful church that's here on Long Island, that's preaching the good news of Jesus Christ. People are coming to faith. People are being baptized. And, I don't know their story. Maybe they've in turn, because of what was modeled to them, they've turned around and have done. Maybe not.
And they have.
Which is, there you go, right? Like, so, there's so much beauty in that. But like, for us to really just take the opportunity for ourselves to say, man, even if it's small, like, I can say we were a part of that, right? Like our church was a part of that.
And I just got to speak at that church, Beacon Church. I just got to speak at their 20th anniversary a few months ago. And we have helped together give resources and people to 3 or 4 church plants in Nassau County over the last 20 years. So it is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, brother, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Like Brian has mentioned, if you're interested in engaging in some way, you heard it. There's 15 planters that we have in our district alone. I mean, if nothing else, be praying for them, right? These are men, women, their families, right? Like that are all in for the good news of Jesus Christ, all in on the kingdom, want to see people come to faith in Christ. Reach out, see how you and your church can start to, and I love even the challenge of like, we can start doing something and that maybe mobilizes us for the next big step, right? So maybe your first step isn't going to be a huge one, maybe it's a small one, but it's going to lead to the next step and the next step and the next step. So Brian, thanks so much, man. This was gold today. And Metro family, thank you for joining us. We pray that you are equally blessed by the time today.
Yeah, thanks for crossing the bridges.
Yeah, man, of course, brother.
I'm so glad I didn't have to drive to Jersey.
Come on, there's no traffic in Jersey.